It's 2025, and if you remember correctly, 2024 was last year, and in that year some films came out. I watched some of those films, stopping short of every single one, and living in the UK we also get what most of the rest of the world class as 2024 films in 2025, if we're lucky. Now I know this video is a little late, but I wanted to have a chance to catch up with a few films I hadn't got round to in 2024 itself, and like pretty much the rest of this country, I've been ill with an unshiftable virus which has lasted for something like 28 weeks. To make up for being late, I won't be going for the standard 10 favourite films of the year. I got 20 for you, and of course, in time-honoured tradition, here's a few honourable mentions. Vermines or Infested is a surprisingly strong creature feature where the creature in question is everyone's favourite, spiders. Do not watch this if you have arachnophobia. Also, don't watch Arachnophobia if you have arachnophobia. Longlegs doesn't quite hit the hype levels created by its brilliant marketing. Great tone, Osgood Perkins has some promising skills behind the camera, but I thought the mystery reveal was a bit bland and Nicolas Cage was just a touch too Nicolas Cagey. Young Woman and the Sea is a safe but very likeable true story drama with a great lead performance from Daisy Ridley, who seems to be on an excellent run. Superman, the Christopher Reeve story, is a moving and well put together documentary about the inspirational actor and his family. And Oddity, an old fashioned and solid mystery chiller which is a little predictable but also very creepy. So to the top 20, starting with, you guessed it, number 20.
Joey?
Yeah.
I'm sorry about what's gonna happen to you.
Abigail gave away not only its strongest hand in the trailers, but also a strong indication on exactly how the film was going to turn out. It's not a film filled with any surprises or twists, but is your typically gory, fun time we've come to expect from the creative team Radio Silence. I'm not actually a fan of Dan Stevens as a straight actor, and I'm grateful that he seems to have found his acting niche in memorable scenery-chewing turns like this one. Alicia Weir absolutely kills it too in the title role. The First Omen had nobody excited until 2024's best trailer first landed, and then it shocked many people, myself included, almost living up to that trailer and surpassing pretty much everyone's expectations. It is very predictable but is exceptionally shot, contains some surprisingly shocking moments, and has one of, if not the best 2024 performance in horror from the brilliantly named Nell Tiger Free. It ends on the setup we expect to go into the actual First Omen, but I wouldn't be surprised if they squeezed in another prequel sequel to bridge the gap.
Whatever comes, we'll face it together.
Let's go.
Alien Romulus is both the Alien film we needed after Scott's frustrating foray back into the universe with Prometheus and Covenant, but on the flip side, Romulus in many ways is almost as disappointing as those two films. It has some big strengths for sure. Kaylee Spaney and David Johnson are both excellent, though they are the only meaningful characters in the film. Fede Alvarez had been championing the practical effects work in the film prior to release, and he was absolutely right to. The production in general is fantastic, from sets to creatures to general effects, apart from that scene, where Romulus disappoints in the forced callbacks and fan service. Some of the major plot callbacks work quite well, but stuff like the "get away from her you bitch" line is fist-bitingly awful and just really annoying. Please stop doing that, Hollywood. Also, considering the track record of the director and talks of incredible gore, Romulus doesn't go nearly shocking enough, with a couple of the deaths feeling surprisingly pedestrian.
Are you familiar with the concept of evolution?
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes is one of several films in 2024 which surprised me and massively exceeded expectations. It's a little slow and probably a bit too long, with fewer interesting characters than previous films, but there was more story and heart than I expected. World building and effects wise, this is genuinely jaw-dropping stuff. It really doesn't get much better. The effects budget must have been astronomical. I would have liked a lot more from Freya Allen's character, and nobody comes close to Serkis's performance, but overall I enjoyed this one and I'm looking forward to what's next. Hundreds of Beavers is not actually a VHS you found in a plastic bag under your dad's bed, but actually a madcap mix of Terry Gilliam's Monty Python animations with a touch of Charlie Chaplin and Harold Lloyd, and a sprinkling of video game levelling up logic. This is full on silly slapstick for 108 minutes, which I must admit sounds like way too long for this kind of near storyless collection of pratfall skits, but at the halfway mark it ups its storytelling game a little, and somehow becomes more engaging. If you have any interest in silly slapstick with bags of inventive and goofy creativity, Hunts of Beavers will hit the mark for you, and if nothing else, there is literally nothing like it from 2024. Society of the Snow was one of the first films I saw in 2024, and it was in my top 10 for almost the whole year. I'm a big fan of Alive, the first retelling of this frankly unbelievable true story, but Society of the Snow is more grounded, pardon the pun, more character based, less showy version of the story. There was a documentary on TV not long after this film came out which showed all the survivors now and how they still meet up once a year to chew the fat. Knowing that somehow boosted the poignancy of what these young people went through. Furiosa is another film from 2024 to go in the sub-list of films which were better than I expected. The plot is more interesting than Fury Road's drive all the way over here then drive back again.
That's bait.
Every other aspect of Furiosa is weaker than Fury Road, but not by the margin I expected. The action is still great, as is the scope of pretty much everything. The weak CGI doesn't detract as much as I feared, as Miller is already a highly stylised director and he's always lent into the crazy theatricality of this world. Having said that, I did miss Fury Road's practical efforts. Anya Taylor-Joy is fine, but she doesn't quite have the intensity of Charlize Theron. Chris Hemsworth is also way too likeable to be a big bad with genuine threat. It doesn't help that his character is also fairly weak. Biggest shot though was Furiosa justified its runtime and entertained me throughout. Not sure we needed it, but glad we got it.
Hi, Peanut. I'm gonna need you to come with me right now.
Deadpool and Wolverine is a ridiculously stupid, meta to the point that it's unmeta, creatively bankrupt, cash-grabbing, cynical mess that I just so happen to very much enjoy.
That's all I have to say about that.
You'll Never Find Me is a horror which is my usual yearly outlier in that you just won't see it in any other end of the year lists. It's an excellent two-hander claustrophobic chamber horror which continually makes you ask which of the two characters are actually in danger during a very slowly unfurling mystery. Sound design is a huge contributor to the growing sense of dread, but slow, deliberate camera work, two fantastic performances and some unsettling and absorbing dialogue all chip in. It's definitely a touch too long and the final reveal feels dragged out and not quite as clever as I was hoping for, but overall this really shocked me and goes down as one of the best movie surprises of 2024. A Quiet Place Day 1 was better than I expected. From the reviews I'd skimmed over, I was fairly sure that most people's issues with this film, comparative lack of action, lack of believability in the lead's mission, weren't going to be issues for me, and they weren't. I would say that these supposed issues are actually the film's strength. It doesn't try and copy the previous two films, has enough good action, and because of Michael Sarnowski's intimate direction, focuses on simple characters who are likeable, believable, and not your typical Hollywood heroes. Lupita Nyong'o is great, that's really just a general statement, and I found Joseph Quinn to be a perfect foil for her character. Yes, it doesn't quite have the punch of the first two films, but what it lacks in thrills, though it does have some, it more than makes up with heart. Before I get to my top 10 and just after you click those like and subscribe buttons, here's a few films you may be expecting to feature, but I either found them to be a massive disappointment or just terrible. Starting with what is definitely my most controversial movie view of the year, Challengers was a bag of shite. This film is once again proved to me that people are way more interested in cinematography than they are with character and story. I just found this to be an incredibly dull film, populated with obnoxious characters who I couldn't have cared less for. The soundtrack was pretty banging though. I was cautiously optimistic about I Saw the TV Glow, but had my fears that it would be a nice looking and atmospheric allegory full of wanky dialogue which had made its point at the halfway mark. And sadly, yes, I Saw the TV Glow is a nice looking and atmospheric allegory full of wanky dialogue which had made its point by the halfway mark. Late Night with the Devil will probably go down as my most disappointing film of 2024. Not a bad film by any means, but a failure as a horror film, focusing for too long on side stories and giving off an overall fake aesthetic, which meant the chill levels were down to near zero. Strange Darling, a film which is built around a reveal which I'd worked out in less than a minute, and I struggled to understand why it wasn't clear to everyone who watched this. A movie can of course be much more than its twist, but it feels like 90% of the point here. And Zone of Interest, which would have had the exact same or perhaps an even more intense impact as a 30-minute short. Okay, so no more negative clickbait, back to the top 10.
What are you doing? Man, why you gotta be such a scaredy cat?
Caddo Lake would be my best hidden gem of 2024, if not for something even hiddenier and gemmier in my top 3. I can't say too much about Caddo Lake, and I would recommend heading into this as dark as possible. I really feel that Dylan O'Brien should be a superstar. He's one great film and role away from getting to those top levels in Hollywood, but he does tend to pick or get given these less flashy roles since The Maze Runner. Caddo Lake is brilliantly clever. You can only be impressed how everything hangs together. In a massively revealing scene, both me and my daughter did a kind of oh. It's nicely shot in a stunning setting and was a genuine surprise. It's maybe a touch slow, a little humourless and cold, but otherwise very strongly recommended if you like an intriguing mystery.
Oh my god, are you guys tripping? I don't feel anything.
That's because we don't tolerate drugs well. Hey, freak.
My old ass kind of blew me away, and I am talking about the film. What was meant to be a throwaway, easy watch for me and my partner late in the year completely shocked me. On face value, it's a rom-com drama with a little bit of special sauce, and that's essentially what it is, but it is beautifully written with believable, natural and very likeable characters and performances. It's undoubtedly the sweetest film of 2024, but it does have a shocking amount of bite, with one of those intriguing setups which makes you question what would you do in the same situation.
I need to report a crime.
Rebel Ridge absolutely did it for me. Sharply written, purposefully directed, cleanly shot, and a magnetic lead performance from Aaron Pierre. A couple of things I really appreciate about this film. One, it's not trying to be another John Wick when it certainly could have been. And two, the dialogue is absolutely killer. No neat Hollywoodisms here, every line spoken rang perfectly true for each character. I also love that this thing simmered for so long and so consistently. It is a touch more edgy in the first 45 minutes setup, but that fire is always lit. My only real criticism is that it didn't get to the boil quite enough, but I will say the fact it doesn't have a massive ending is completely in keeping with the rest of the film and actually kind of the point.
There's some kind of misunderstanding here. Look, we're American, okay?
Okay. What kind of American are you?
Civil War is another film from 2024 where the primary complaint in reviews gets me reaching for those missing the point memes. Perhaps Civil War wasn't the best title for the film, as the unexplained backdrop of the war is just that, a backdrop. I will say that this is Garland's least interesting film narratively, thematically and symbolically, but even with his imagination only firing at 60%, this man knows how to direct a good film. The cast are flawless across the board, the dialogue is sparse but well done, and overall it's a cracking looking film, and in spite of the lack of detail about the fighting, it feels real, too real at times, and the tension occasionally made me feel a touch queasy with how close to the knuckle it got.
Sir, I don't understand.
That's glaringly apparent.
I can't fail this class.
Oh, don't sell yourself short, Mr. Coates. I truly believe that you can.
The Holdovers is very, very lovely. Paul Giamatti is one of my all-time favourite actors, and nobody does these sad, downbeat and damaged characters better. Divine Joy Randolph is very good, though I don't know that her performance was quite Oscar-worthy. I love the 70s vibes of this one and some of the bold shot choices. It's not quite up there with Payne's best film Sideways, but an enjoyable watch all round and definitely a film I'll be revisiting.
Is this based on your actual life?
Yeah, you think some bitch-ass college boy can come up with that shit?
No, I don't.
American Fiction is a simple but sharply written and very enjoyable drama. The cast are excellent. I've always been a massive fan of Jeffrey Wright, and though I do kind of feel it's not really stretching him to anywhere new, it's an incredibly likeable performance. The dialogue is often an absolute joy. The light banter between the family had me grinning throughout. I love the idea of the story and the smattering of interesting narrative delivery ideas. The The satire is heavy-handed and the ending is a touch of a damp squib, but this is one of the most purely likeable films of the year.
I see possible futures all at once, and in so many futures, our enemies prevail.
Dune Part 2 might make a hypocrite out of me, but this is how you tell a large-scale epic story through massive cinematography and great direction. Story and character-wise, it does have some similar issues with Part 1 in that it's all a bit po-faced and serious and cold. It's not like the story and characters are weak as such, but these films are all about the look, feel and scale, the production design and values, Hans Zimmer's massive score, Greg Fraser's lensing, and Denis Villeneuve's passion and attention to detail. The cast are all excellent, especially Austin Butler, who is clearly relishing playing a charismatic yet off-the-rails psychopath, and I wish he'd had a bit more screen time. I'm still not 100% convinced by Chalamet as Paul, and I'm hoping for a bit less petulance in his performance in Dune Messiah, which I do think we'll get now that Paul has grown to meet his potential. Still can't see why Denis didn't get the Best Director Oscar nod, but them Oscars gonna Oscar or something, I don't know.
Her brain and her body are not quite synchronized, but she's progressing at an accelerated pace.
Poor Things is all about Emma Stone, and apparently the Oscars do get it right sometimes, because Stone was an absolute lock for Best Actress in 2024. The rest of the film has got plenty going for it, particularly on a visuals and production level. Loved all of Lanthimos' typical quirks and eye for the surreal. Now, I love Mark Ruffalo, and I might be on my own little island with this opinion, but I just don't think he was right for this part. The film is OTT in most departments, including the performances, but his felt forced somehow. I'm sad to say this, as I know Ruffalo himself had his doubts whether he was right for the role, and apparently during the shoot Willem Dafoe pranked him with Oscar Isaac, calling him into an office and telling Ruffalo he was fired to be replaced by Isaac. I feel bad for saying it, but Isaac would have worked much better here. I'm sorry, Mark. Poor Things is also a film intended to be viewed rather than felt. It's funny and occasionally shocking, but I'm not sure I ever deeply felt anything other than wide-eyed wonder, and the long runtime didn't help with this aspect. But still, Poor Things is a great time, and I'm sure I'll watch it again, if only for Emma Stone. The Promised Land takes the biggest shock of 2024 trophy, and I'm absolutely stunned that this didn't get more buzz on its release. Yes, it's a historical foreign language film which is never going to get it playing across multiple Odeon and Cineworld screens, but Mads bloody Mikkelsen, guys! And The Promised Land was a bit of a banger. It looks magnificent, beautiful, lush scenery captured in all its epic glory. The cast are flawless alongside a perfect Mads Mikkelsen, especially the dude playing the villain, who's one of those bad guys that you'd relish punching in the face time and time again. The story had me gripped, drawing on deeply interesting Danish history, with plenty of power struggles and political tug-of-wars. There's a cautionary tale here too, that blindly driving towards a goal can leave you compromised and leave you far away from your planned finish line. Please, I beg you, watch this film. And my number one film of 2024, All of Us Strangers.
Our boys back home?
Our son. Look at you. You were just a boy. Now you're not.
This film is a brand new leader in the competition of which film has made me cry the most. Now, I think All of Us Strangers has its flaws. The lighting, though very clearly a purposeful stylistic choice, is flat and drab and a bit heavy-handed. There are almost one too many emotional punches to the gut, and I would have preferred a bit more vagueness in general. But these flaws are incredibly easy to forgive in a film that can make any other human feel this way. This film devastated me. When I got home, I tried to give my girlfriend a non-spoiler overview, but could feel my bottom lip trembling as I spoke. This is beautiful and tender, soul-destroying and life-affirming all at the same time. I've always thought Andrew Scott is pretty great, but here he's just beyond brilliant. Playing off the backup trio of Paul Mescal, Jamie Bell and Claire Foy certainly helps, as each are at the very top of their game. I've yet to watch this a second time because I'm not sure I'm ready for it yet, but I'm interested to see how its emotionality hits on a rewatch. I can't see it being lessened too much. Oh, goodness. So that's 2024 finally wrapped up. I'm hoping to be a bit more consistent with my channel output in 2025, so hopefully you'll stick around and smash that subscribe button, or just click on it. Thanks for watching.
Game over, man. It's game over.